There are currently 5 Tyrellians serving aboard the Enterprise. The mating habits of the Arcarian hornfowl are quite interesting, and Picard does the Vulcan neck pinch to Tuvok. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 6, Episode 18, entitled Starship Mine, not to be confused with Starship Down of Deep Space Nine or Enemy Mine, cool movie, written by Morgan Gendel, directed by Cliff Bole. This was March 27th, 1993. Where were you? And how are you today, Sirach?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. Anytime we can record an episode like this is a good day. Everybody, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that. And please visit us at patreon.com/the7th-rule to support the show and become a part of the community. All right, Sirach.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts on this episode.
What?
I know. Nerdy thoughts. However, you've never seen this episode before, to my knowledge. So I would love to know what you thought of it.
I thought it was a different episode than kind of what I'm used to seeing. So I did get a sense that a new writer was giving a whole different take on the show, essentially, using the characters that we like. But it did feel like a different writer, a different POV for some reason. I kind of was excited a little bit to see where we were going with it in the beginning when, they had the shot of the bridge empty with Picard walking around. I'm thinking, oh, where are we going with this? Are they, is this a big, like, we're shutting down shop type episode? So I wasn't sure. And so I kind of expected more than what I got.
Yeah, there was a nice moment there with Picard that was like poignant, where it looked like he was saying goodbye, old friend, or something. There was something there. Did you immediately recognize our buddy Tim Russ when he showed up?
Yeah, how do you not recognize Tim Russ? Of course I recognize Tim Russ. And I was looking to see if he was a Vulcan or not, because the way Tim Russ naturally wears his hair, he has an edge that on the sides that is kind of pointed, which is similar to how the Vulcan look is, right? And so I saw that and I thought, wait a minute, what's going on here? Is this a Vulcan? But then I couldn't tell, and I don't think it was. And so I was like, maybe he's just playing a different character.
I wonder if, let's see, Voyager started in 95. This was 93. So no, there wasn't really, I don't think they were really casting for it yet, but we know that he was like something like in the top 3 to be Geordi. And we know he also played a Klingon in Deep Space Nine. So maybe he just kept his hair like that to like be like, hey guys, I'm still here. I'm still Starfleet. Use me. And they're like, okay, Klingon in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was another one of our friends that was in this episode as well. Patricia Tallman, who we know she did stunts. She was a stand-in for Gates McFadden in some things, and also for Nana in Deep Space Nine in some things, if I remember correctly. But she played kind of like the second in command lady who is an alien. I don't know if you recognized her off the bat. It's tough when she had the makeup.
I didn't recognize her. But no, that's cool. It seems like Star Trek does do that. They, they really farm from a certain talent pool that they believe is qualified for, whatever they're doing genre wise. And you see that with Jeffrey Combs. You see that obviously with Vaughn Armstrong. where, and we've even seen it with Armin, being brought back for the core character and things of that nature. But
Bunch of things, yeah.
so they really do farm from this particular pool of talent that they believe meets the
Yeah.
criteria of Star Trek and that kind of storytelling.
That's a really good point. And I think I'm gonna drop a bomb in a second, and I mean that in the cleanest way possible. Um uh I think people just naturally, when they're booking talent, they make mental or physical notes on somebody that auditioned really well, even if they didn't get the part. So it's just usually it's a case of this guy auditioned really well. For example, Tim Russ and Geordi. It's not a no forever. It's a let's hang on to this guy. We're not going to use him for this role, but we're going to use him. And then they do well. And then they're like, hey, we could use him again for a different alien. We could, if they like an actor, they're going to want to keep working with them. Sometimes it's kind of obvious. Sometimes like a guy that like, you're like, hey, that's the same guy. Sometimes they're aliens like Jeff Combs or whatever, and they could use him a million times. But they did that again in this episode because almost every one of the guest stars is in more Star Trek episodes than this. However, Sirach, I've got to tell you something.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite episodes ever.
Really?
I know.
I'm surprised.
This is this might be a top 5 episode. And when I was a kid, I spent that $19.95 to buy this episode on VHS tape, and I watched it over and over again. I had almost all the lines memorized. Like when I'm watching it today, I'm like, I remember this line. I know exactly what they're going to say. Also, I'm surprised that you're surprised because clearly my idol is Hutch, right? I mean, I'm obviously Calvin Hutchinson. Call me Hutch.
Oh,
So,
oh,
Brian T. Hutch over
the
here. I mean,
small
this guy,
talk king.
oh man alive, that guy, give that man an Emmy. Guy. And then I'm kind of surprised that, not that you don't think that it's amazing, but like you had to like Data mimicking Hutch and be like, hey, and he's like practicing and like
Yeah,
getting the mannerisms down. I still
yeah,
crack up to this day after watching it like 15 times. Did you
yeah,
enjoy the humor of this episode?
yeah. I definitely enjoyed that. I put that down there. First of all, Data is funniest to me, when he's not trying to be funny.
Mhm.
So I actually enjoyed, for example, the turbo lift scene with Picard, and and he's like, "It's been quite a day, has it not?" Just like it's just a vague thing to say, right?
And then the third thing he starts to say, Picard interrupts him and goes, Mr. Data, are you all right? Are you
Yeah,
feeling all right? Like
like
he's just
what are
like,
you talking about?
what's Data? What is going on? And he said, and Data says, I think he said something like, I am attempting to fill a silent moment with non-relevant conversation. How did I do? And Picard says, maybe a little too non-relevant.
Yes, yes. So that was that was funny to me, and so already I was kind of like interested in the humor. I knew a Data was going to get opportunity to be funny, for example. That's kind of set the tone for what to expect from Data in this episode. And so, yes, the funniest moment to me in the whole episode was when Calvin Hutchinson came up to Beverly and he was like, Beverly, how you doing? And you could see Data hiding behind the pole or
Yeah.
whatever. He mimics his face, and that made me that was I thought the funniest moment for me of the episode. Like I laughed out loud thinking, look at this guy. Because when we've all done that at some point. I remember I got in trouble as a student because I was
Uh-oh.
making fun of our basketball coach, while he was not, paying attention. And so I was going through his mannerisms, how he pushes his glasses up and and talks to us. And I remember he kind of like caught me in the act of the whole impersonation. And like I could see it on everybody else's face, so registered on everybody else's face. They were looking at me like, bro, you need to stop. You need to stop, right? But they didn't say it. And
Of course, they
by the
can't
time,
say it.
yeah. So by the time I caught on, I was like looking at their face, and I'm like, oh God, he's here, isn't
You
he?
could tell
And
you're like, he's
yeah,
right behind me, isn't
yeah,
he?
yes. So I felt like Data was in that kind of a moment where it's like a mimic. It's a mimicking of gesture moment. We all do it, when we think somebody's got mannerisms or things that are interesting or unique. We try to kind of imitate it out of jest or sometimes out of trying to implement or incorporate that into your own personality. So you might see somebody who's like a tough guy and you know I remember as a kid, I'd be like, go ahead, make my day.
Yeah.
Do the whole Clint Eastwood, try to, tough guy talk. So I thought that was fun to see. Brent
Yeah.
Spiner is funny.
What's funny is when I look back at how much they crammed into one episode, in that the comedy ended at like the 20 or 22 or 23-minute mark.
Yeah,
Yet all of that got crammed in. There was so much. There was Picard walking and everybody bugging him, and you could tell he needs a vacation. There was possibly the other funniest scene when Worf excuses himself, and then Geordi goes like, "What, Captain Permission?" He's like, "Mr. LaForge, I cannot excuse my entire senior staff." Right? And he's like,
yes, yes,
fun, and then they meet Hutch, and we see him like, oh God, Riker's like, oh geez, this guy, and then Crusher's like, oh boy, this guy, and Troy's like, oh, and they're all rolling, and meanwhile Data's doing this and that, and then finally they come together, and we're like, yes, finally, Data and Hutch
yeah.
together, and they get off like two peas in a pod. Did you know? I did know that, but did you know? Huh, that's fast. And to us, it's like we're in on the inside joke. We're like, this is hilarious. These two are meant for each other, and all of that as like the B plot in the first half of the episode only. I just thought it was really impressive that they were able to cram all of that into 20 plus minutes, and it was just the B plot, but it felt like we had this giant arc already with these characters, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah. I was also, though, looking for some other element.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you what I felt like that was for me missing. I wanted Calvin Hutchinson's character to be tied in more to the A storyline than it was, and
Interesting.
I felt like it did sit so far apart that it didn't. I wanted more tie-in, and for example, he could have been involved with this plot because there was part of me thinking, is this guy just buying time so that these other people can get this mission done, right? So he's just going to filibuster essentially until mission is completed, and then he's done his part to assist these renegade group of people. And then so there was a little bit of suspicion on my part in that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? I've never seen this episode, so I don't know who he is and what his part is in this whole scheme. So I'm thinking, is he connected to the scheme? That was my first part. The second part was, if he's not connected to the scheme and he's just a filibuster talkative person, then there should have been an element there where I felt he should have been an embellisher.
Hmm.
And what he was saying was true and accurate. And so there's just smart fact like people that love to tell you every fact in the world and say, oh, do you know what happened? Do you know that particular thing is made out of 40% carbon? And
Well, certainly
right?
none of them are Star Trek fans.
Yeah, right. Yes. But there's people like that. And I would have liked that. This is what I felt like would have worked well for the story as far as this particular episode is concerned. If Calvin Hutchinson is an embellisher of a great stories that happened to him in his past, because a lot of them were stories. Well, I'll tell you who came here one time, and I did this, and I one time I did this, and if those stories were being called out by Data, as in, well, I checked the files and there's no record in Starfleet of you.
Like Chunk in the Goonies, where he's like, Michael
Yeah,
Jackson came to use my bathroom. Michael Jackson didn't use your bathroom. No,
yeah,
no, he didn't. But his sister did.
exactly, exactly. That would have worked better for me because Data could have been easily counterfactor, counterfacting his facts and essentially saying, no, well, I checked the personnel record and I don't see any evidence of you being on Tiberian 9 at the same time that, such and such occurred. And so then there would have been another back and forth. And that plays into the A story. How? Because Picard is actually doing heroic things while this guy is talking about heroic things that he has accomplished. And
Sure.
that would have been the contrast that I would have needed for the chef's kiss on this episode.
Yeah, and to be fair, I've got a million nitpicks with this episode. Not saying that what you have is a nitpick, but I'm just saying, like, I'm not 100% sure why I like this episode so much, because there are so many things I can nitpick. I can nitpick it to death. There's so many things. But for me, I think the reason I liked it so much is because the humor was really funny to me. It's not usually, the humor that's like a cute little haha, or at the end of an original series thing, where it'll be like, now, what would you know about that, Spock? And it's like, wah, 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 a little song plays
Yeah.
and Spock raises an eyebrow, and you're like, okay, I guess that's humor. They tried. But this actually cracked me up,
Yeah.
And so I really, really like the humor. And I thought that, some people liken it to like Star Trek's Die Hard, right? Because Picard is doing like Die Hard stuff. And there's also the comedy of him with the saddle and he's pretending to be the Bolian Mr. Mott. And there's some really good scenes in there. Like he basically, I mean, it gets pretty heavy. At the end there, Picard is now living with the fact that he killed 6 people. And each one of those moments kind of hits, like when he hears the baryon sweep hit that guy, he's walking away, baryon sweep hits, we hear the scream, Picard kind of stops and has a moment, and you could tell it's registering. He's like, I just killed somebody, and it weighs heavily on him. And when that lady, flies off in the ship and her ship blows up, he doesn't like smirk. He like kind of stares, and you could see that he's going, I had to do it. I don't like it, but I had to do it. And that I'm sure that's in the script, and I'm sure that personally, I think Patrick Stewart, nails it because he just has a moment. He just pauses. He has a moment. The director gives him that moment to sit on his face for a second. So there's just so many elements to this episode. I feel like it's crazy because it's like a comedy and kind of an action thriller like Die Hard, and they're totally different. Obviously, the comedy goes away after the first half. I think most of my nitpicks would be when the comedy dies and they're all being held hostage by 2 people. But anyway, I won't get into those right away.
Yeah. Again, like I said, I felt like this was a real good opportunity to show Picard's heroism.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's actually on a one-man, basically, away team mission. This isn't a one-man, the captain alone on an away mission. And the away mission is on the Enterprise itself. So just off of that, as far as being a premise of your story, that's pretty cool as a premise of the story. If I'm pitching it to the writers, right, they're going to be like, "Oh, he's on an away mission, but it's on the Enterprise. No one else is on there except for this rogue group." So that's great because we don't have to build another set. We just have to dress down the Enterprise, turn the lights off, and that's a great story idea in itself. Again, I think the element that I would have liked is to contrast Picard versus Hutchinson. Picard being the guy who does the the necessary things to do, regrets loss of life in these circumstances, and then goes on to meet up with the same group of guys and doesn't brag about it in the same way that Hutchinson brags about his so-called experiences and victories or achievements. That would have showed the perfect. That would have been the perfect bow tie on this present, basically revealing that Picard, not only is he brave, not only is he a hero, but he's also humble and not
Right.
braggadocious about it. And he comes back and, hey, are you okay? How was everything? And it's just, we lost 6 people, and leaves it at that. And it's not like, I fought this guy and I had to stab him and I threw him over the thing and there was another 3 people were holding me and I got out of it like on a last second, like, instead of doing the Hutchinson thing, doing the Picard thing, which is taking the high road and showing us the kind of leadership that he did in the moments that he did. I like the moment where he took a pause in that shot. I thought that
Hmm.
was a great moment there because there was no words there, but it was very obvious that he was taking a moment of silence for a person who lost their life, who, although they may be committing a crime, may not deserve death as a punishment for that crime. Right?
I just realized something. It's almost, I know I'm mistaken, but it almost seemed like you were slandering my idol, Hutch, for just a second. You were,
Yeah, you know what?
it almost sounded like you were
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
that
yeah.
my hero, Calvin Hutchinson, call me Hutch, is in fact not actually a hero. Did I? But I'm sure. I know
Uh,
I'm
I
misinterpreting
feel
completely.
a level of embellishment with Calvin Hutchinson that goes far beyond the
The
stars.
stars.
Yeah. So
All
yeah,
right.
no. And then the other thing that bothered me too is like, did he diss the name Calvin? I think he dissed the name itself, Calvin. Like he said, "Oh, my name's Calvin," and he said something bad about it, like,
Yeah, yeah, but then he said, "Just call me Hutch." Well, and
yeah."
the other thing,
But
and I
then I
always
like a Calvin. There's a Calvin that I do like. Isn't there a Calvin on DS9 that was part of the Maquis?
exactly. And do you remember how close his name was? Because this is what I was going to mention. His
Oh,
name was. Oh, we got to take a
Calvin.
break, everybody. Unless you got it, because I got it.
I
If you get it
don't.
right,
I don't.
okay.
I don't. But I thought it was Calvin. I know it's Calvin. Okay, I have
Uh, right now, people are typing in the live chat and the comments. I'm like, we know what
the
it is because I remember thinking that too. I remember going like, boy, these names are really close. We'll be right back. And we got to get into all the people and the different things that they've done. It's really cool on the seventh rule.